There are basically two kinds of strata. There are bedded strata, and there are cross-bedded strata. When we examine bedded strata, and often cross-bedded strata, we notice that they are most commonly organized by granule size. Some strata are not organized by granule size, and this would depend upon the material being laid down at the time. However, whenever a strata is being laid down, which has varying size material granules in it, they are organized by granule size. That is to say that at the bottom of the strata are the largest granules, and at the top are the finest. There's a gradation to it, from larger at the bottom to finer at the top. The evolutionists believe that these strata were laid down over vast amounts of time. At the minimum, many thousands of years, sometimes tens of thousands, and often hundreds of thousands, and in cases millions of years. This is completely preposterous, as has been demonstrated already with hydrology experimentation, particularly those you have seen in the previous video in this series. For the evolutionists to believe that this strata was laid down over vast amounts of time, they would have to believe that for some reason nature laid down only very large granules first, and then over another period of many, many thousands of years, smaller granules were laid down. And then again, over a period of many, many thousands of years, yet smaller granules were laid down. And then the process starts all over again with the next strata. This is completely absurd. It is absurd because from the bottom of the strata to the top of it, there is a continual reduction in the size of the granules. There are no cutoff points within that strata, where only larger granules are, and then those of a specific size, and then again of a specific size. The granule size moves continually from larger to smaller. Furthermore, it is absurd to believe that there is some mechanism in nature by which granule size would be laid down over vast amounts of time as larger and then smaller and smaller and smaller, and then this process start all over again. It's not even rational. I find it quite ironic that evolutionists complain when a creationist tells them God created something, and then they say that the creationist is appealing to magic. The truth is, the evolutionist believes in much greater magic than any creationist. Their faith is outrageously greater than any creationist. They must believe in all kinds of magic. Magic systems in nature which lay down granule size as greater to finer over vast amounts of time, and then the process starts all over again, and repeats itself endlessly. In some cases, a cross-section will reveal both contiguous and non-contiguous strata. For example, here we see strata which have granule size ranging from larger at the bottom to finer at the top. And also in that same cross-section, strata which have a basically contiguous granule size. Both can be laid down together. However, whenever granule size varies within a strata, the granule size at the bottom is the greatest, and it moves to finest at the top. This cannot be produced by vast amounts of time. The long deposition periods of evolutionists for the strata of the Earth do not exist. Geology discredits the claim that the strata of the Earth were laid down over vast amounts of time. They could only have been laid down by a cataclysmic flood. The fossils of the Earth provide further proof that the strata were not laid down over vast amounts of time. They could not exist if they were not buried rapidly, because they must be protected from the erosive effects of solar radiation, bacterial action, and scavengers, and geologic events. They must be protected, must be buried rapidly, else the fossil would not occur. If you throw a fish out onto the ground and come back in 50 years, you won't find anything left of the fish. In fact, if you came back in a month, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything left of the fish. To become a fossil, it must be buried rapidly. as is demonstrated by this fish, which was buried alive at the moment it was eating another fish. Many fossils like this have been found. This fish didn't even have time to swallow its meal before the flood waters and sediment buried it alive. Polystrate fossils are fossils which cross strata, such as this creature you see here, from the Cambrian. It crosses the strata, proving that the strata were not laid down over vast amounts of time as the evolutionists claim. If the strata were laid down over vast amounts of time, the creature would have eroded away before it could be fully buried. There would be no fossil. The Cambrian strata are the lowest strata in the earth in which life forms are found. There are some strata below them which are called Precambrian, in which life forms are found. These are erroneously categorized as Precambrian and should belong to the Cambrian strata. In the Cambrian, we see a variety of life that is unexceeded by any other set of strata in the earth. Virtually all body plans and phylum of life, not all genus, but all body plans and phylum, are found in the Cambrian strata. The evolutionists believe that these strata existed hundreds and hundreds of millions of years ago, and that they were laid down slowly. The truth is, because Cambrian creatures were slow-moving creatures, most of them ocean-going creatures, they were captured first by the flood of Noah and buried rapidly. That is why they are found in the lowest layers, because they could not get away from the rising and oncoming flood waters. This is why we find dinosaurs in typically less than 10 or 15 feet of sedimentary material, because dinosaurs were fast-moving creatures, and they could run from oncoming waters. When they felt the earth shake like a freight train, they knew something was up, and they headed for high ground when they saw the water rushing. That's why they are buried in shallow, sedimentary material. But the Cambrian creatures are found near the bottom of all the strata of the earth in which life exists, because they were not so mobile, and they could not flee from the oncoming floodwaters. Creationists have been telling evolutionists this for many decades, and they just don't want to listen, because they must adhere to their dogma that the earth is billions of years old and the strata were laid down over vast amounts of time. Because for them, evolution must be true, regardless of what geology or biology demonstrates. It is for them a dogma. It's a paradigm, and they cling to it with religious fervor, regardless of how much scientific evidence discredits it. See, the evolutionist is driven by their heart, not their mind, and therefore they refuse to accept creation, because it demonstrates that God is the creator. Therefore they cling to something which has been scientifically discredited countless times in every field of science. Furthermore, a considerable percentage of fossils that we find demonstrate that the animals are in their death throes. In other words, they're flailing and fighting against the sediment because they are choking to death on it. This is particularly true of large vertebrates, such as dinosaurs. Their heads are thrown back, and their limbs are cast into uncommon positions, because they are fighting and struggling for air, as they were rapidly buried by the sediment brought upon them quickly by the flood of Noah. This is a web page sponsored by Nova, a university website devoted to geology. And here, if we scroll down this web page, we come to an image in which the author states, "This time, the Pattern Recognition Center wanted it to be a trilobite, but that's impossible, or strictly speaking, not possible, but history rewriting able." In other words, this can't be what it is unless we rewrite history in these aged rocks. Brian tells me it's almost certainly an inoceranid bivalve. That works for me. That works for me. See, anything but the truth. You see, according to what they believe, this cannot be a trilobite because of the strata in which it was found and the fact that it's polystrate. So, he's willing to believe anything else except reality. This is why evolutionism is not science. It's a dogma. It's been discredited. Evolutionists are denialists. Evolutionism is not science. It's not scientific. It never was, nor will it ever be.